Right, shall we move on? Front page of the Sun newspaper today. Great story. It's an exclusive. You can see it just here. A hotel group housing asylum seekers was paid £700 million from taxpayer coffers. Welcome, it says, to the raking it in, as in INN. Very good. £700 million for these private firms, all courtesy of the taxpayer, Emma.
It's an industry. There are people who are making an awful lot of money off of this, who have a vested interest in more and more people coming in. And I saw a story just the other day about how there are British homeless people opposite one of these migrant facilities. They obviously are not receiving any sufficient help from the state to get off of the streets. I just think it's an absolute abomination that we are putting people up from other countries at such expense when we can't take care of our own or refuse to take care of our own.
Is this also, Judita, a story about subcontracting and how the British state now regularly pays out billions and billions to private firms to deliver services that were once delivered by local authorities or the state itself? 100%,
whether it's from public transport or even during COVID, whether it's vaccines or PPE or now with migrant hotels. In struggle and disaster, there's an opportunity to make a buck. And this goes all the way back to the carpetbaggers. There is always a way to make a buck. But this is something, the figure of 700, I think it was 704.6 million is from 2022. This is a Tory inheritance because they let things get away from them. And it will take time to fix. There's not you can't flick your fingers and then roll everything back. But Labour is working on fixing it, like they cancel some contracts.
Just going back to the story that we were discussing about how young people won't get out of bed for less than £40,000. I mean, well, you're looking at the way that people who come from other countries are treated. Why would you? Why would you? You think things are just being handed to other people on a plate? Why should I be inspired to go out and work hard so I pay taxes, so all that tax money can be spent on putting people up in nice accommodation with free meals, gym classes, a game room and guitar lessons? Why would you?
Here's a question for you. I have a friend who works in property and he has declined offers of working with the government to house migrants in various properties and accommodation because he doesn't think it's morally right. Is it treacherous for people to be making money off this crisis?
In all crises, it is treacherous to do so, but opportunism is an intrinsic element of human nature. To change that, you have to change humanity. But the key is the opportunity to capitalise on it is what lies with the government. And what you have here is a situation where when these migrants come, they've got to go somewhere. If you don't put them somewhere and they're running rampant, that introduces other threats to the general population. So you're going to have to work on it from multiple angles where you're regulating the numbers coming in. Those who are here, you can actually monitor and you put them in places where the costs are not spiralling so people see it as a point to profiteer.
But it does create this sense of unfairness, as you were saying, Emma, that the differential now between people who work really, really hard and what reward they can expect and people who are either asylum seekers or who claim the maximum amounts of benefit. You know, the differential between how well you can live has just been completely eroded.
And also the fact that you've got people who have paid into the tax system for their entire lives, people like my grandmother who fought during the war, who have paid in their entire lives, end up having to sell their homes in order to pay for their care because the state won't look after them. I think, I mean, it is obviously an extremely unfair situation where this country does not prioritise looking after the people who are already here. It's where our resources and our facilities are already so stretched that we are having to fork out enormous amounts of money to put people into accommodation like this. And to Ben's point, look, I think people like John Mappin, who had a hotel, I think, down in Cornwall, and refused to have that used as a migrant facility out of a sense of duty to the local area. I think that people who run these facilities, run these hotels, maybe it's slightly different if they're these large chains, but I think they have a moral obligation to say, no, if the government is going to pay for these hotels to be used in this way, it should be used to house homeless people who are already here in Britain, British citizens, rather than any economic migrant who comes across in a small boat across the channel and whose first act on the British soil is to break the law.
Well, careful, you're bordering on common sense there, Emma, which I don't think is allowed in this day and age.